Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football presented by Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every morning by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Also want to give a huge shout out to Duck Camp as well, as they're sponsoring right here on Texas Football throughout the Texas College Football Playoff run. So a big thank you to them, and a big thank you to all of you who are tuning in. Get your questions in. Tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking this morning. And guys, let's just jump right on into it. Team arriving in Arlington today as scheduled. Media day later on today. What are we expecting out of that?
CJ's on his way to Arlington as well to interview various coaches, players, et cetera. We'll have something from that. But really, the biggest news of all is this weather. And a lot of people suffering through it and dealing with it right now. And Thursday and Friday, it's supposed to come in, and we'll see exactly what that means. The Cotton Bowl committee or officials are releasing several different announcements. Here's one that came in yesterday. We continue to monitor weather reports, and over the last 24 hours, the forecast for later this week has improved, according to the National Weather Service. This was released around 8 o'clock last night. We have been meeting routinely with city officials, the director of transportation for North Texas, and the college football playoff. Should the forecast shift, we are prepared for all contingencies. That means if it gets worse, they might call it a game, but they're planning on playing this sucker. North Texas highways are already being brined, and plans are in place to assure a safe environment for everyone in and around AT&T Stadium on game day. The teams arrive tomorrow. That's today. Now, as planned, and the college football 2025 CFP semifinal at the Cotton Bowl Classic will kick off on Friday evening as scheduled. Here's what I would say to that. Everybody get there early. If you're planning on leaving 2 hours before game time just to get to the Cotton Bowl, don't do that. Leave 4 hours ahead. Take your time. Be safe. Get there and cheer on the Longhorns the right way, because you never know. There could be an accident that delays you for an hour. But get there and leave early no matter what you do. I think that's the biggest piece of advice I can give anyone. Be safe, of course, at all costs. But that seems to be a big point right now in Dallas area, because Dallas is notorious for horrible roads when it gets icy outside. Jerry, you're there in Dallas, and you've been running around the roads already today and yesterday. What's going on, man?
Look, if I have a little split-second delay, I apologize to everybody in the chat there. I may do that this morning. So just a little rough on the connection here this morning. But, yeah, just, look, everywhere I'm going from school standpoint, they don't think they're going to have school Thursday and Friday. So everybody's planning for it, preparing for it. But I echo Bobby. It's like you just get here early. But they're going to start getting the roads ready later today. From what I hear up here. It's I don't like cold weather. So if I'm wearing this, Jerry's not a happy camper. I'm not a cold weather person, man.
Me neither.
I would literally live on the equator if they'd let me.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
Seth asked, when am I going to do a live from Chick-fil-A? That's not a bad idea. Let's see.
May have to do that or Starbucks. They have good connection speed there too, Jerry. Hey, Jerry, you went and saw a couple guys yesterday. CJ was down at the Navy All-American game in San Antonio as well. We got to see a bunch of different ones. Who do you want to talk about first that you talked with or saw yesterday, bud?
Yeah, I guess start with Javian Osborne, junior running back at Forney High. One of the top 4 or 5 running backs in the country in the 26 class. Texas and Michigan, I believe, are remain the top 2 for him. He's going to put out a school list soon. He is a guy that's a 3-down back. I mean, he's 5'9.5", maybe 5'9", 192. He played in the Under Armour game last week. That's not really a showcase for running backs. This is the first year they let juniors do that. We're going to have a 13, 14, I can't remember how long it is, minute interview with him here on the YouTube channel later today. I think our producer Matt is going to release that. He's productive guy, 69 touchdowns, 3 years, been a 3-year starter at Forney. They were 5A the first 2 years, went to the state semis. Then last year moved up to 6A. But his best two running back coach relationships are Tashard Choice and Tony Alford. So, look, Texas will be in this one until the end. If I'm betting, if all things are equal, I do think Texas has an edge here. I'm not saying it's a done deal at all because it's recruiting in the NIL era. But he likes everything about the Texas offense. He loves Tashard Choice, and look, that's a heck of a cut right there. He's just become he is a really, when we talk about the fits in what Steve Sarkisian's built at Texas, he is one of those fits. He is a really good fit from a culture standpoint. And he hasn't decided if he's going to go anywhere on January 25th for Junior Day yet. I think he will. And Notre Dame's the third school that I think is really trying to make a push to get in to maybe have a top 3 instead of what I consider a top 2. So we'll see where he goes January 25th, either Texas or Notre Dame. Alabama's trying to get him on campus February 1st for an unofficial visit. But I don't think anything's changed there. I think Texas and Michigan are pretty much your top 2 amongst 40 offers and a list that he's going to start trimming soon.
Good stuff there. And the other one that you were going to talk about, Jerry, which I believe was just recently offered by Texas. I'm going to let you talk a little more about him.
Yeah, I saw Jamian Winfield yesterday at Richardson High. Really, I mean, this guy's going to rise to be a top, in my opinion, doing this a long time, top 50 kid in the country, if not higher. He is – I knew he was probably – I thought he was 275, 280. He's 6'3" and change and 297, but looks like he weighs 275. I mean, this guy's going to be an elite prospect, near 11-inch hands, 81-inch wingspan. He moved from Meridian, Mississippi, not a guy who's grown up in the weight room. So he moved into Richardson in July, but then he tested in December. I think, and he's natural. This is natural strength he's playing with right now. I think he's a 315 bencher, maybe 495 squatter, 295 on the clean, which tells you how much upside he has physically to go with the quickness and explosivity you see here. And maybe it's because I'd never seen him and it was just the initial impression, but I don't think that's it. I think this guy's going to end up being one of the top 3-4 defensive line prospects in the country in 2026. I bet that's kind of where he rises if he stays healthy, because this is him his first year. This is him as a junior, first year at Richardson High in Texas. Now think about him with a Texas high school off season. These guys are in the weight room. He's going to throw the discus and shot, not playing basketball. He's about to start getting a lot stronger to go with the quickness. He has a nice natural long arm, which obviously they'll continue to refine his pass rush moves. But he is not just a guy that he's a guy that can play some 5. He can play some 3 long term because he's got that quickness. He's going to have that pass rush ability. This guy's a very, very high end player. He is expected to go to Ole Miss January 18th for Junior Day. Texas obviously offered. There's going to be a fight to get him on campus on the 25th, whether that's Texas, any of the other schools. I mean, everybody's coming after him now. LSU's offered him, A&M's offered him, Oklahoma's offered him, Tennessee. I mean, you name it. Anybody that's coming through is offering this guy. He's going to end up being one of the best prospects in the country if he continues on at this pace, considering how much stronger he's got, how high his ceiling is. He's elite.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for that, Jerry. Before we move on, Bobby, I'm going to let you tell everyone out there about Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm.
Yeah, Adam's been sponsoring us. He's also giving away free tickets again this week to some fans. So make sure you check out his Twitter. Adam and his group over at the Lowy Law Firm have been helping injured Texans for more than 20 years now. He is a guy that you want to call if you've been injured in a truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, including ATV, or a semi 18-wheeler. Give a shout, LowyLawFirm.com. Adam and his team, big supporters of the Longhorns, big supporters of OTF as well. We appreciate him very, very much for making shows like this possible for us.
I want to mention one other thing in recruiting. If you didn't watch last night's live stream with Aaron Hogan, Rod, and CJ Vogel, Zealous Hicks was on there. Go back and watch his interview. You'll be extremely impressed.
Yeah, a lot of people talking about that in the chat this morning, saying how great of an interview it was. So good stuff there for sure.
That is the defensive back out of Georgia that is going to be a midterm enrollee at Texas in another week or so. Hey, guys, want to mention a couple things happening also at practices, etc. So Cam Williams has been back working with the first team. I fully expect Cam Williams to start on Friday night for the Longhorns. So that's the right tackle. I think Kelvin Banks is fine. He looks good. Furthermore, I am being told that Bert Auburn has won that job again. So Will Stone kicked, I believe, on Saturday, Sunday. Bert Auburn yesterday came back, and I think they've tweaked some things and came back and hit every single field goal in the first and with the 1s and 2s yesterday. So I believe that Bert Auburn will be your field goal kicker. To Jerry's point, when we were going on and talking about this early on, he said, well, they better not need many field goals in this game, because this likely is not going to be a field goal game when you play Ohio State, but something to watch there as well. The better news for me, the idea and expectation of Cam Williams being ready to go at right tackle. That is a big deal because, Jerry, it's no surprise that the Texas run game went south a little bit without him in there. Even though Trevor Goosby's good, I mean, Cam Williams is a plus run blocker. There's no doubt about it. There's a reason why he's expected to go in the first round now after only starting 1 year for the Longhorns.
Yeah, he's an edge setter, difference maker in the run game. I mean, he is a guy who can turn edge defenders whichever way he wants to. And when he contacts people, I'm not saying it's going to happen against Jack Sawyer, who's a second-round level pick, which is where Cam may be too, first or second-round guy. But when he contacts people, they feel it in the run game. He doesn't get knocked back in the run game very often, even in the wide zone, outside zone schemes. He is a force multiplier to me in the run game. That's actually his strength. Also, about portal for offensive linemen, I don't see it. I think Texas likes their young guys.
Yep. Also, in the Ivory Tower, some news shakeup. He went into the portal yesterday. Jay Hartzell, who's been on our show before, the current president of the University of Texas, is stepping down in June, and he will be going to SMU. The Ponies going to be the team that he, or not the team, but the university that he leads. I will add this in speaking with people at the very top of the food chain, or texting with them yesterday, and I will just reiterate this. As long as Kevin Eltife, the chair of the Board of Regents from the University of Texas, former state rep in the Longview, Tyler area, I think he's from Tyler actually, as long as he remains as the chair of the Board of Regents at the University of Texas, whoever becomes the president of the University of Texas, whoever they select, will understand the importance of athletics within the university ecosystem, within that setting. And so while Chris Delcani's there leading the athletic department, Hartzell was a key figure, in my opinion, in smoothing over some very tough times at the University of Texas. But make no mistake, Kevin Eltife will be the person who is hiring the eventual president at the University of Texas, and athletics will be a consideration, and understanding that it will be in that category or in that under consideration when he's making that hire will matter. So I think that, look, you never want to lose good people, and I think Jay Hartzell is good people. At the same time, this shouldn't affect Texas sports all that much, if at all, to be honest.
And Sean,
we like good jokes and bad jokes. I fully blame this on Rod Babers because Hartzell watched our shows and he said pony package way too much. There's my bad joke. I got it out of the way. Moving on.
Oh, gosh. And Sean, we thank you for your super chat. Hopefully, Bobby answered that for you. And then Longhorn Frenzy also said, Bobby, your post on losing Hartzell to SMU yesterday was spot on. As long as Eltife is Regents chairman, Texas athletics is locked in and hook 'em. So thank you both for your super chat. And also have a huge thank you to Tim here. Tim with the big super chat says, nice to meet both Bobby and CJ last week at the X's event in Atlanta. Since Bobby joined my buddy and I for a bit and we got a lot of questions answered, consider this super chat back pay. How to be an OTF OG. Keep up the great work. Best content there is. Thank you,
Tim. You were very gracious. You and Andre both very gracious to sit down and talk. And thanks for some other things you've done as well. But Tim, really appreciate that. And I want to say this: the Atlanta Texas X's were so welcoming, Jerry and Blake, to everybody that showed up. Not just the former players that may have come through or the players' parents that joined us on that Tuesday night, but also everybody there. The Atlanta Texas X's, my hat's off to you guys for setting us up with a nice little spot on New Year's Eve. It was a fun time. Tim, nice meeting you, and good seeing Andre and meeting him and talking to him for the first time. I think I talked to him briefly when I was in school back there. Andre Edey was a walk-on. That was a player for the Longhorns, I think. So, or I know he was. But anyways, long story short, thank you, Tim. We appreciate you very much, man. Welcome.
And one other hot topic that we need to discuss. Yesterday, Texas hosted Auburn in basketball. Jerry, of course, that line was at 10.5, but it was a little bit closer than a lot of people were expecting. I'm going to let you talk about that, and then I got a super chat for you regarding basketball afterwards.
Yeah, that's a late cover by the Horns, man. It looked like Auburn had that thing was going to cover. I think it was 69-49 at one point. But, again, this is second games in a row in the SEC where the winners averaged over 80 points per game. Seth Greenberg said recently it's the best SEC he's ever seen. And I think that's coming to fruition pretty clearly right now. But again, look, Texas is going to, if they have to get in games like this, and they're going to have to win enough games like this, they have to get these games in this conference. I've said it before. I don't care how good a defense you play. The best teams are going to score 75 plus to get you. You're going to get into score fest games, and you're going to have to be able to score in the high 70s on the road, low 80s, high 80s at times. Auburn is averaging 88 points a game. This is the best offensive team that Bruce Pearl has had at Auburn, in my opinion, because they shoot it better than any other team that he's had. And so they got a late cover because Arthur Kaluma went nuts in this game, and at 34 hit 5 of 6 threes. But they Jordan Pope started making some plays off the bounce in this game. So it was a late cover, but I never really felt like Texas was in this game. I'll be honest. That's just my opinion. I think Auburn's a better team. I think Auburn's about to be ranked 1 because Tennessee went out in Gainesville last night and had the worst shooting performance in the history of any team ever ranked number 1, I believe. They lost by 30 at Florida. I think they were at 1.7 of 49 from the field and 1 of 24 from 3. But you have to score it at a high level here in the SEC. Texas got a late cover, but I never felt like they were really in this ball game. This is one where I thought this was a pretty big mismatch for Auburn from an interior position. But then they're 38% 3-point shooting team. You put a 38.3-point shooting team with Bruce Pearl and the way they play in this roster, and they're going to be one of the tough outs. But Texas is going to have to find a way. Coming up, Tennessee at home Saturday, which again, Tennessee, if they get in for this game, is coming off their worst offensive performance in years and maybe ever under Rick Barnes at Tennessee. So Tennessee will be looking to rebound. And Texas is going to have to win games in the high 70s and 80s. That's the way it's going to be in the SEC this year. I mean, look, again, Kentucky scores 106 points on Saturday. Then they go and don't shoot it well and lose to Georgia yesterday, 82-69 on the road. Then I was talking about Tennessee, Florida. Florida didn't suddenly find their defense for the people calling for, it's all about defense. Florida gave up 106 to Kentucky. They didn't find their defense 2 days later. This is a scoring league, the SEC is, and it's a talented league. And you're going to – everything game within the game, everything everybody talks about, you're going to have to put 80-plus on the board.
And that super chat, Jerry, actually comes from Braxton. And he says, Jerry – and thank you, Braxton. Jerry, I got a basketball question. Is it too soon to tell if RT should be fired? And are the guys now figuring out how to play SEC basketball?
I don't know about the whole SEC basketball. This is the best year the SEC's had. This is the most talented SEC I've seen in my years watching So I don't know about figuring out how to play SEC basketball. They have an extremely tough schedule. I mean, we talked about their first 5 games are at A&M, who's ranked around 13, Auburn, who's 2, Tennessee, who's 1, at Oklahoma, who scored 80 on the road and lost by 27 to Bama, by the way. And then you at Florida, who's a 15-1. I mean, this 5-game stretch, look, you're going to have to average in the 80s against these teams to have a shot to win games. Can they score enough on the road? Can they score enough in these games to win? You're gonna have to win in shootouts in these first 5 games. I mean, these are teams who are really good offensive teams. They have good personnel. Texas, I think they actually made a couple of cuts last night. They got to run offense with purpose more for me to maximize what they do. It's a tough road as far as RT. I don't know. If you go 6-12 or 7-11, that's in the league, then that's going to be a CDC call for me. But if they don't go 500, then it's going to be a lot of conversations, Bobby. We know that.
Yeah. I mean, look, you get hired at Texas to win. I think every Texas coach knows that. That's part of the idea behind being at a program like Texas, where you have all of the things that you need to be a great program. All right, we've got a guest coming in. Weekly guest is Tony Hills. But first, I want to say thank you to our week-long sponsor for the college football playoff. That is Duck Camp. Duck Camp gear is made for the people that live for the moments out there where there are fish to catch, birds to hunt, time to kill, and football to watch. They like doing all that stuff, so they built a company centered on it, based in Austin and dedicated to giving people best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel. Duck Camp gear has been tested from the backcountry of Alaska to the dove fields of Texas and deer leases of Texas. It'll stand up to the toughest of conditions, but also happily sit down beside a fire and drink a few cold ones with you if that's more your side, more your speed. Thank you. And their iconic Game Series hats feel as timeless as the hats found in your grandpa's garage. Be sure to check out the new Mallard and Pointer hats in the clay colorway, pretty much our cherished burnt orange color. Here's the great seasons, y'all. Hunting and football. Shop hunting and fishing gear at duckcamp.com. Thank you very much for your sponsorship this week of the college football playoffs. All right, let's bring him in. Our man, Tony Hills. It's time for Hump Day with Hills. How you doing, Tony?
Man, listen. Hey, Bobby, what's happening? Jerry, Blake, I want to let you know something, man. You have one of the coolest host voices that I've ever heard.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate it.
Listen, man, when I tell you that I think of the movie Friday Night Lights every time you speak, brother, it brings back a nostalgia for me riding the bus to go play Baytown Lee when I was at Elsik High School, man. So I appreciate you. And Bobby, I bought this specifically for you. I don't know if you can see it, man. It's a blood pressure medicine. So I'm gonna send this to you because I know last week your blood pressure was through the roof, and you can put it in that locker back there behind you, man. What's happening, OTF? What's happening, Coffee and Football?
Hey, Tony, I challenge you to watch the game Friday with Bobby.
I'll do it. On Zoom, though, Jerry. I'm not sitting next to him, man. You know his opinion just gets the fire.
Well, I thought you were bringing the blood pressure medication.
I'm gonna ship it to him.
Hey, Tony, we saw you last Wednesday before the Longhorns took on Arizona State. The run games were some problems. What has Texas got to get fixed before they play the Buckeyes on Friday night?
Absolutely. I think the thing that we have to get fixed is the sequence, man. Honestly, I didn't really know what the plan was. It seemed as though we were trying to establish some sort of dominance in the game, but we got away from it early once it didn't work the way we wanted it to, right? And so we started with a little gap scheme. And I don't, for some odd reason, we kept trying to run outside zone. The problem that you have with teams that are built on speed, and when you have an offensive line like ours that are really built more for the power game than we are for the zone game, is that it's hard to get to the points with linebackers that don't have any type of backflow to hold them there, right? So if I'm a linebacker 240, 230, right, and I'm running 4.5, 4.6, and I'm a 300-something pound lineman, I can't get to that guy via foot speed. I have to get to that guy via angle. So I thought our angles are off up front as it pertains to get to the spot. They were just beating us to the spot in the zone game. But what I will say is that there were some things that we did that caused them to at least kind of respect it a little bit, to where it frees up Gunnar Helm in the second overtime, right? Because now they're like, okay, it's a possibility that this could be a thing, and it pulls those linebackers up. So you saw the effect of what could have been if we were able to establish the run game like we wanted to.
Tony, you talk about establishing that running game with a team like Ohio State that is a good front. Aren't you looking just to be more effective overall? Brian Irwin, who does lunch with the coach with me, always talks about an effective run being 4 or 5 yards. He's not necessarily looking for that big pop. He's just looking to get into 2nd and 6 or 2nd and 5 or 3rd and 2, right?
Yes.
Is that really what you're not talking about, blowing Ohio State off the ball? You're just talking about being more effective, right?
Correct. Yeah. So you have to think about it this way, Bobby. A lot of times you look at something like Ashton Genty, right, and Cam Scatterboo, what they did, right? Phenomenal backs, right? You look at these 150, 100. When you're playing in the NFL, I mean, there's some players that are above the rest. King Henry, right? You've seen Najee have some of those type of things, right? Those big runs. But that's not really what the run game is about. The run game is about making us be who we are at our best, and that's being balanced. The run game is about making the safeties now have to step up into the box. So now that we can get one-on-ones with Golden and Moore and Isaiah Bond when he's healthy. The run game is about making the defensive calls be honest, right? I can't just start blitzing you guys left and right or sending dog pressures left and right, because if I miss, this guy has the ability to kill me on the ground, right? The run game is about slowing down those pressures so that Quinn has time in the pocket on play action, instead of like it was in the game against ASU, where we try to go play action and the coming out of the halftime, the defensive end doesn't even respond to his responsibility, and he blows up and hits Quinn right in the face. Why? Because we haven't established anything. So why am I going to go for this play action fake if there hasn't been anything established on the ground? So when you have an effective run game, 4 yards, 3 yards, 2 yards, I talk to you guys about this all the time. In the late third to fourth quarter, that's what starts to happen. And here's the science of proof. What happened with Cam Scatterboo? If you look at Texas from the beginning to Texas on the back end, there's a totally different team. Now, they played over 100 snaps on defense. I get it. But still, that's the wear and tear. Those first runs that he had, he popped one for about 5. He popped another one for about 10. And for the most part, he was bottled up and frustrated, so much to the point he's pushing his lineman and moving, running to the sideline, cussing out the coach. He's doing all types of crazy stuff. That's what happens when you're able to bottle that up. But to ASU's credit, they said, regardless of what Texas is doing, we're going to do what got us here. And they kept giving it to them. And all of a sudden, here's a 30-yard gain, a 20-yard gain, a 15-yard gain, right? That's the same way that we have to be. Now, when I talked about earlier, Bobby, the sequence, I need to understand, like, who are we going to be? When we talk about establishing the run game, it's hard to establish the run game when you haven't established an identity. Are we a power team? Are we a zone team? We have to establish an identity. That means an identity is this. If it's 3rd and 2, 4th and 1, what are we calling? Right? And ideally, when we look at Arkansas, when we look at Texas A&M, when we look at even Oklahoma, the most effective runs that we have are when we're going that way. When we try to stretch the field east and west, we don't always get the results that we want. We get results, but not as great as the results that we get when we run north and south. So I would love for Sark to come back to that. I would love to see some more inside zone if we do anything. If you want to be aggressive, let's get more inside zone instead of stretch zone, right? Let's get more power, no pull, or double team blocks across the board, right? And then let's see, by doing that and establishing that, do we get the reactions from the linebackers that we're looking for to be able to pop those deep balls and to pop those passes to Gunnar Helm?
Hey, Tony, you were on a team that was told they weren't going to win a game, right? The game, the USC game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And obviously Sark's playing us against the world this week, right? He's playing that up to the team and then the media. Kind of talk about that, because look, if we're always going to be just real here with opinions, Ohio State's playing the best football in the playoff. They are playing the best football. They have not beat 2 G5 teams to get here. They smoked Tennessee and they smoked Oregon. And it was 21-0, 14-0 at the end of the first quarter of those games. So talk about that mentality. What does that do for Texas, in your opinion? Because Texas has been favored in every game since the Alabama game on the road. So Sark has not had an opportunity to play us against the world to his team in a while.
Yeah, no, I think that there's a motivation there, if anything, for a heightened sense of attention to detail. If we're looking into the locker room, I know they're hearing it, but they're also seeing it on tape. These second and these late second quarter and third quarter lulls, we can't have. If you think that you're going to go out there and just, lollygag around in the third quarter and not do anything offensively with a team like this, you're sadly mistaken. And there's going to be a lot of sad fans at the end of that game. Texas we've been saying this for 16, 17 weeks now. Texas has to put it all together. And it's not just offensively. They have to put it all together offensively, defensively, and special teams. Like, we're not going to sit up here and act like prior to the 90-plus snaps, there weren't leaks in the run game where we weren't fitting our gaps the right way, right? Where we weren't getting knocked off the ball a little bit as well, right? So we have to get back to doing football one-on-one, man. Trusting your team, right? Trusting the player next to you and playing your brand of football, which is a physical brand of football. Understanding what the pad level looks like, driving guys off the ball, straining, right? When we're talking about the trenches, the game comes down to this, Jerry. It comes down to what offensive line and defensive line are going to dominate the line of scrimmage. That's what it comes down to. And then from there, it's the second most important. Well, to me, because I'm a lineman, I say it's the main important thing, but it's the second most important thing in my mind, the quarterback play, right? Quinn has to make plays, not just with his arm, but with his feet. Right? Okay. You have to be able to escape some of that pressure. And when it's nothing open, you got to be able to make something happen. And I'm not talking about the Levitt 20, 30-yard scrambles. I'm talking about getting the first down. Moving the chains in this game is going to be imperative. Staying in front of the chain, staying ahead on first and second down is going to be imperative. And the team that can do that is going to win the game. And to answer your question, the last part before I land the plane, Jerry, is simply this. Is it cool? I know for us at Texas, when we played USC, that's the game you're referring to, we heard all the chatter. Of course we did. And did it lock us in? Absolutely. Because we knew that us against the world mentality, it did formulate a tight-knit group, right? But it at the end of the day, what has to happen is that's great prior to that whistle blowing and that football getting kicked off. After that is football. After that's attention to detail. After that is my will versus yours, right? And so if Texas wants to win this game, this is the juggernaut. This is the Goliath. How are you going to slay
it? Tony, you're just so spot on. I think you said some of the things that Jerry even talked about earlier this week about Quinn needing to move the chains. I mean, you think about that third and goal from the 5 touchdown. That gave Texas extra point. I mean, that's the first time he really scrambled all day long, and it came at a very opportune time against Arizona State. Let me ask you this. Ohio State's offensive line has been maligned a little bit this year. Some Ohio State fans, if they were pointing to not necessarily a weak point, but one of their less strengths has been their offensive line. Yet they've come together the last couple of weeks post-Michigan and put it together. There's a blocking scheme that they put together, running more counter now, as opposed to some other blocking schemes they were doing. What does that do, in your opinion, for a team that was kind of searching for a go-to piece in the run game for them? They've kind of opened up their run game with going more counter and running downhill with Travion Henderson and Keyshawn Judkins.
Yeah, what it does, Bob, is it shows you their identity, right? Like there were a lot of coaches, offensive-minded coaches. They look at the way that their system works and they base it off of the experience that they've had, and they say, "This is who we are," right? Those are your good coordinators. Now, here are your great coordinators. Those are the ones that say, this is what I've done. This is what has worked for me in the past, but this is not what we're capable of doing. So let's scrap that and find out what these guys up front like. And we're going to run this till the cows come home. We're going to run this until you stop it, right? And so what you see with Ohio State is as they're continuing to gel, because you gotta put this thing together when you lose starters. You go in with a certain mentality about who your 5 is, and now the war of attrition happens, and now we have to adjust and adapt, right? That's in any sport. But within that, it's the cohesiveness of who are these 5 people together. And these 5 people together for Ohio State is counter. Great. When it's 3rd and 2, when it's 3rd and 3, 4th and 1, this is the bread and butter. It's so simplistic that it's almost laughable, Bobby. Football is not a hard game, right? What do we do well? What does the defense not do well? We'll take what we do well against what they not do well, and we're gonna run that until they stop it, right? Like in all aspects of the game, that's what football is about. Sometimes we as the guys on the outside on the sideline as the coordinators, we can out coach a win. We can out coach a win, so much so that we try to get too fancy, and all of a sudden we're calling things that we just really don't do, right? Like the counter trap play action, I like it, but there's a sequence. You can't run that play if we haven't popped at least 5 or 6 of these things within the scheme of the offense at some point in time in the game, right? Because the defense is not going to respect it. They're not going to respect it. And that's exactly what we saw when we saw Quinn get smacked in the face when they tried to run it. I'm not against it. I'm just talking about the sequences. So if I'm looking at this game, I'm saying Sark is an offensive mastermind. Don't come off the script. Do you, because when you do you better than anybody in the country. So it's not just the product on the field, it's the people that's pushing the buttons and calling this thing, right? Everybody, this game right here, guys, is an everybody game. This is the coordinators, this is the coach, this is the equipment guys, this is an everybody game. Everybody has to be on point so that you have your absolute best when you walk out there on the 10th.
I got another question for you, Tony. You played in some heavy attrition games. And what I mean by that is versus Texas Tech, you guys might be out there. Your defense might be out there 90 plays. Offensive line might be out there 80, 90 plays because that was back before the rule changed on out of bounds plays and clock stoppages, et cetera. What's it like? The Texas defense in particular just went through that 9 days ago, right? Or 7 days ago today. But coming up on Friday will be 9. What is the recovery time like? And do you think Texas has enough time to fully recover, especially when Arizona State really did try to pound the rock, so to speak, and then play action off of it? Is that something that Texas fans need to be worried about, or is that just a part of being a football player at this point?
I'll start my answer off with this, Bobby. Obstruction is a friend and adversity is a helper. Obstruction is a friend and adversity is a helper. Like your body is going to respond predicated off of how your mind responds, period. One of the games that I remember, not even Texas Tech, you guys remember when we played Central Florida in Florida?
Oh, yeah. Down in Orlando. Yeah.
Yeah. Mac thought it would be a good idea for us, the top 5 team in the country, to go and play these kids that just opened up this stadium. We were the very first game they played. So when we talk about the hype train, like we got their absolute best. That was our version of Arizona State, right? In that game, I played over 100 snaps. I needed IVs at halftime. I needed IVs on the plane. And then when I was trying to go out for the running conditioning test that we usually do after the game, Mad Dog cussed me out like, what the hell are you doing? Go sit down, right? So, but coming into the game after that, I was perfectly fine, right? Yeah. At the end of the day, our body goes how our mind goes. And I'm gonna tell you like this, where we're looking at this from an NFL perspective. At this particular point, everybody's tired. So let's throw that one out the window. Everybody's exhausted. Let's throw that one out the window. Everybody's hurting in some capacity. Let's throw that one out the window. Now, who wants to be a national championship? Who wants to be in a national championship, and who wants to host that trophy up, and who wants their name to be ingrained forever? I'm 20 years removed from this thing. All of the guys that I played with when we won, we're 20 years removed. But guess what? We're 20 years removed, and it's still going to have our names on that trophy. So greatness has a cost, right? Greatness has a cost. This is the cost. If somebody said to you, hey, you're if I told you that you're one game away from being in a national championship, what would you do to get to that point? Up until this point, all of the ins and outs, the ebbs and flows, the X's and O's, all of that, what Texas is, what Texas isn't, right? None of that matters. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is this one game for you to be locked in and to put it together, right? Because I can guarantee you that Ohio State is looking at this situation and saying the way Ohio State is playing to me is they're playing as though they don't give a damn who they play. Y'all in the way. That is the force that we're getting ready to come up against. So how does a impenetrable object stop an immovable force? They're the intangible things that have to happen. I'm going to strain on this play. I'm not getting beat. I don't care who you are, Jeremiah Smith. I'm not getting beat, says Jahdae Barron. I don't care who you are, Sawyer. I'm not getting beat, says Williams, right? I don't care who these players are, first round picks, second round picks. I don't care. You're in my way. You're in my way. And I feel like every time that Texas has been put in that type of position, the Alabamas, right? Being on the road against an Arkansas team, tough positions, going to the big house before we knew what Michigan was. Michigan was the defending national champions, and we went to their house and handled business. If we can get that version of us, then I like our chances in this game.
Hey, Tony, last thing I have for you, and that was a great speech. Everybody's ready to play in the chat. There's a bunch of people putting on their old middle school helmets right now. They're going to go try to run through a brick wall one last time. One of the things, my two keys in this game, outside of the skill talent, is who can disrupt quarterbacks early the most. Because Howard and Quinn have both been turnover prone if you get in their face early in games and disrupt timing, because Ohio State has unbelievable timing in their offense right now. And two, to your point earlier, is third down conversions. But I want you to touch on, for Texas, I want you to touch on getting pass rush early on these quarterbacks, because I think it's going to be hugely impactful in this game.
Well, when you look at, and I know we can't look at him from the standpoint of where he was to where he is as it pertains to Will Howard, but there's something to be said about DNA, right? There's certain quarterbacks, no matter how great of players they have around them, if you put them in their position to where they're uncomfortable, they don't play the way that they've been playing. So to the Tennessee and to the Oregon, I will say this. Ohio State has not faced a pass rush like Texas.
That's right.
They haven't. That's just the reality of it, right? And so I think that if we're looking at Broughton and I'm drawing blank on my other guy
Collins.
next to him. Yes,
Collins.
Alfred Collins. If we look at Alfred Collins and Broughton, they have to have huge games and disrupt the pocket from the inside out. They have to disrupt it from the inside out, move Will off of his spot. Now, what I can anticipate is when that starts happening, they'll probably try to get him on the run a little bit. And that's fine, because if you have them moving pockets, then now you're cutting off half of the field, right? And so which way do you cut that off? Because we have great corners on both sides. So we want to make sure that we're doing that. I think this, though, Jerry, if you look at games like this are decided during situational football time, right? Meaning what? It's the second half. Look at us when we played Alabama. How do we lose Colt McCoy? Situational football. Hey, let's just run it and go into halftime. Instead, we do a shovel pass, he gets smashed, and now boom, it's a wrap, right? These type of things, 3rd and 3, I can't have a false start. I can't. I just can't do it. I can't jump off sides on a hard count. I just can't do it. I think that this game is going to come down to those moments. Which teams can operate in that fashion and do what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it. And as far as the football stuff, listen, Ohio State's going to make plays. If you think they're not, you're sleeping. They're going to make plays. We're going to make plays. Whoever makes the most plays and have the least penalties in this game and establishes the line of scrimmage, I believe they come out the winner.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Tony. Look forward to seeing you this week. Longhorns headed to Dallas. You'll be up there in your hometown, or not your hometown. Your hometown is Houston, but you're up in the Metroplex nowadays. Tony, it's good to see you, buddy. You take care of yourself, and thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, man. Hook 'em, man.
Hook 'em. I think you got some people fired up, Tony. Got some people fired up. They're ready, bud. Thank you.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff as always, guys, for sure. And yeah, there's a lot of people, as Jerry said, saying they're going to put the helmet on, run through a brick wall.
They're putting their kids' youth league helmet on right now.
Ready to hit some. One person said they ran through their coworker, so Tony got everybody ready to go there. Oh, well, Bobby, if you don't mind, will you let everyone know about Hargrove Roofing?
Yeah, absolutely. Know who's on your roof. Thank you very much to our friends over at Hargrove Roofing with offices all over Louisiana and Arkansas, and of course, Texas, including Austin. Hargrove Roofing will take care of all of your roofing needs throughout the great state. Plus, they're very Longhorn friendly with partners like former defensive tackle Stevie Lee, who comes on our show every Monday with the Winning Drive. They are the most pro burnt orange roofing company out there. Call them today for a free roof inspection. That is 512-645-3202. That's 512-645-3202, or visit hargroveroofing.com. Know who's on your roof.
Thank you, Bobby. And I also want to tell everybody today about Rocket Money. And Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It also monitors your spending, and it helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. That's all great. I'll tell you right now, it helped me find 2 subscriptions that I completely forgot about. And once I saw them, I canceled them to save a couple of extra bucks. And then it also alerted me that one of my subscriptions I currently have went up by $65 a year and another by $48. I had no clue about either of those. It helps me. It will help you too. And Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. All you have to do is go to rocketmoney.com/gameon today. That's rocketmoney.com/gameon. rocketmoney.com/GAMEON. Also, I want to mention that Rocket Money's dashboard gives you a clear view of your expenses across all of your accounts. It's a great tool for so many reasons. That's why I use it. Bobby said yesterday he uses it and it's helped him out. So we encourage you to use it as well. Again, rocketmoney.com/gameon. And we want to thank them for sponsoring.
Saved me over $500, actually.
Can't beat that.
Yeah, no, I did.
Can't beat that at all. All right, guys, we got some more super chats that we need to jump into. So we're going to just start. Actually, I need to rewind because yesterday I actually missed one from our friend Jack. And so my apologies to Jack. I didn't realize it till he brought it to my attention this morning. But it was actually for you, Jerry. And Jack he said that Joel Klatt made some comments that it's obvious that the SEC is no longer the best conference. His question to you is, does that affect recruiting?
No. And I think it's going to be, now that we're headed to 2 super conferences, essentially, with a couple others still hanging around the rim, I think it's going to go back and forth some with these teams. We talked about the other day, and I think there's going to be a year where maybe Ohio State and Penn State are really, really good, and maybe the top 5 in the Big Ten maybe have better teams. And then it could turn right back around to the SEC. But look, these teams are going to dominate in the NFL drafts. They're going to dominate the awards. I think that's here to stay. But now, look, the SEC, the whole key there is the SEC is going to continue to have the most talent in the conference from 1 through 16, because it's just look where all the players are. Just look where all the highest percentage of NFL players come from. Now, that doesn't mean you have the best team. One of the things this year was before Carson Beck's injury, he didn't have the year people were expecting him as a 1-1 guy before the season. Bobby talked about this. Some of the guys that we were all expecting, and everybody's expecting to be the best quarterbacks in college football. It didn't turn out that way for those guys this year. And, and that includes Quinn, and that includes Jalen Milroe, and that includes Jackson Dart, who peed down his leg in Florida, and that's why, Lane Kiffin, you didn't make the playoffs. It was nothing else. So the quarterback, your top core quarterbacks in the SEC, we'll see what if Quinn brings out his best game of the season Friday, because that's what it's going to take, in my opinion. But those upper echelon quarterbacks in the SEC maybe didn't deliver on the expectations coming in, because you're talking about 4 guys that were all could have been projected to be first round picks, and Quinn and Carson Beck. Cam Ward wasn't in discussion, and Shedeur Sanders were the 3 guys that were all talked about as who's going to be the 1-1 guy. So I think that to Bobby's point, the quarterback play wasn't what was expected to be in the conference this year, but the SEC is still going to be the most talented conference. They just got to put together the best teams. But I think it's going to be a little cyclical from here moving forward, because of you have 2 super conferences essentially. And with Oregon, and we'll see if USC can get their act together, kind of like Oklahoma. With Oregon moving into the Big Ten, you just have one more team possible that can be really good. And the Big Ten had those teams this year more so than the SEC, because a couple of those SEC teams didn't deliver on the field as they were expected.
I think it's quarterback centric. I really do believe that, to your point, Jerry. I would also like to add that the NFL numbers from the 2 conferences are very different. I mean, what's going to be interesting now is if you add Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA, what does that add? 80 more NFL player roster spots, basically, from those 4 schools. I think it becomes more equitable between the 2 conferences, the overall talent level, but there's also 2 more schools. So my take on it is that the talent level between the 2 conferences is, I want to say it, coming closer together to where there are 2 super conferences.
Yeah.
But Will Howard has played well overall this year. He is a upgrade from what they had last year with Kyle McCord. But Ohio State's been a dominant team in that conference, in part because they've always had a quarterback, right? They've always had good quarterback play. That's one of the reasons they're different than a Penn State, who just now is getting elite quarterback play, in my opinion, from Drew Lohr. Michigan didn't break through with Jim Harbaugh until J.J. McCarthy was his quarterback. J.J. McCarthy's a first-round pick. So quarterback matters in this conference as much or as any conference. And that's why you're seeing, I think, those guys move forward. Notre Dame with Riley Leonard. He's better than Sam Hartman. This isn't an appreciably different team for Notre Dame this year than last year, other than at quarterback.
Yeah, I want to say this, too, from Ohio State side. It's crazy. We talked about this last summer. They were set to hire O'Brien.
Oh, my God.
And O'Brien got the Boston College job. For the Ohio State fans in this, I'm sure they'd agree that was a blessing in disguise, because they got Chip Kelly. And I don't think – look, Will Howard got benched at Kansas State at times last year. So I don't think Ohio State has a great quarterback. I think he's got unbelievable parts around him. I don't think Will Howard is any different. He's just more experienced of a quarterback talent than he was prior. He's just got all NFL top 3 round picks around them on offense. But I think Chip Kelly, so I think there's some things that have happened too. Look, in Penn State, he's got a better offensive coordinator than he had. They've made some pretty good hires on offense too to kind of help push them. And one, Ohio State kind of lucked into it though. But they're Penn State. But Bobby, Penn State's got a better OC than they had last year.
No doubt. Yeah, Andy Koltanicki. Yeah, no doubt. He came over from Kansas. He was Kansas offensive coordinator and showed what he could do there. And look where Kansas kind of fell off to this year without him. I would say that, and I do think Chip Kelly is more of a college offensive coordinator than Bill O'Brien. That was one of the worst hires I thought I could have ever heard someone make, was Bill O'Brien as offensive coordinator. I mean, it didn't work at Alabama. Why is it going to work at Ohio State? You know, that just doesn't make sense. So, but this is where we're at now with Chip Kelly calling plays in Columbus. I think he's a good offense coordinator. The thought, though, that goes back to Jack's question is about how it affects recruiting. Does Big Ten get a little sexier now that they have 2 of the 4 spots in the Big Ten in the college football Final Four? They're the odds-on favorite to be the champ of 2 years running, 2 different teams with Michigan and either Penn State or Ohio State here. That doesn't affect recruiting in your eyes, Jerry, at all, or does it slightly?
No, I don't think it does. Look, we talked about this. We did a show on it. Ohio State is the one team up north that can go down and recruit South Florida. And Urban had some connections there. The Bosa's obviously were Ohio State. But they won a lot of recruitments in Atlanta and Florida. Penn State does it, but not as many national guys. But they've gotten good players. But I don't think it changes things in recruiting because until the math changes where how many kids go farther away from home outside of a 250-mile radius, until that math really starts to change, then I don't think so from a recruiting standpoint. Now, the interesting thing for me, we'll see if this hurts Oregon at all, which in the NIL day and age, it should not. Oregon was absolutely cleaning up on the West Coast in 2026. Okay, does this help Big Ten out west maybe more than you think? Like Ohio State, obviously Chris Olave, they've had some. They have Henry Jr. committed from modern day. Those schools, Ohio State, Notre Dame, have had Michigan a lot of success out west. But now, does Ohio State just dotting Oregon, could that overcome some NIL out west for them? I don't think it's going to change things in the SEC, in the Southeast, in recruiting. I don't see that much at all. Does Ohio State get one more guy? They've been getting that guy since Urban Meyer's been there in South Florida and battling in Georgia. So I don't think it changes it.
All right, I got a couple of super chat comments I want to get through real quick here. Jackson S says, if I win tickets, going to have to drive down. Flights or money? Well, if that's the case, Jackson, good luck to you winning, first off. But be very, very careful on the road. So just my advice. As Bobby said, leave early. Leave very early. All right, guys, before we get to some more here, Jerry, I know it's your favorite time of the morning. It's time for you to let everyone know about Joy Mode.
Man, god dang, I don't want to say that. But we know who needs Joy Mode, what college football programs do. All right, this is Bobby's favorite read. Say goodbye to weak erections with Joy Mode Sexual Performance Booster. This all-natural supplement is designed to enhance your blood flow, giving you firmer, more reliable erections. Who doesn't want that? But Joy Mode isn't just about better sex. Daily use supports healthier blood vessels, boosts heart health. It enhances your athletic performance. Texas football team at halftime headed in the third quarter offensively. Expertly formulated and backed by science. It's proven to improve erectile function by 50% in just 60 days, 2 months, man. That's not that long to wait. Simply mix a pack with water and feel the effects in 45 minutes. Take control of Joy Mode. Get a boost anytime, anywhere, and never miss a beat. Joy Mode features 4 simple proven ingredients, unlike prescription options that involve doctor visits and managing refills. Joy Mode provides a straightforward, effective solution. If you're looking to take your game to the next level, try joymode.com and use code ONTexas at checkout for 20% off single purchases and 30% off subscription orders. That's tryjoymode.com and use code ONTexas for 20% off single purchases and 30% subscription orders. And if you just want to have some fun, you can take some of this and it'll work in 20-degree weather. Trust me, Joy Mode.
Trust me, he says. Bobby.
Yeah, trust the man.
Please.
Yeah, absolutely. Prize Picks. It's playoff time, and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the playoffs. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Sign up today, get $50 instantly when you play $5 odds. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today and use code ONTexas to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app, use code ONTexas to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
Thank you, Bobby. More super chats here, fellas. And let's see here. Trying to figure out where we left off. Oh, here we go. Slick Rick. That interview with Zealous Hicks last night. Holy cow, what a stud. He's promising in the secondary in case Williams goes with baseball. Jonah Williams goes with baseball. Keep recruiting.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, he's a extremely impressive kid. Just the work he put in, when we heard, okay, there's a better than 50-50 chance he's going to be an early enrollee, I was thinking, okay, so he'll get to Austin in June. Well, it turns out he's here now. Not only did he reclass from 26 to 25, sorry, I said that wrong earlier. When he reclassed, we were thinking he'd come in June. Not only did he reclass from 26 to 25, he's coming in now in January. Huge head start for him. Obviously, Jonah Williams is on campus partaking. I think he said in a couple of football meetings, but working out with the baseball team now. So the Texas defensive back room, Cade Phillips is down at the Navy All-America Bowl. He checked in about what we talked about, by the way, for those wondering, 6'2", 180, over 10-inch hands, 10.25-inch hands, 80-inch wingspan, playing corner down there. Caleb Chester, I think, is going to punch above his weight class in recruiting at corner at Texas. I see a lot of similarities. A couple of guys playing there now. But this defensive back class, Grayson Littleton as a nickel/corner. This is a tremendous defensive back class. Just got to keep him healthy and keep developing him. But this defensive back class it's crazy to think about where it was. At one point, Caleb Chester was the only commitment. And obviously, if you haven't seen Caleb Chester interviews with Rod Babers, Caleb's going to be a really good player. I believe that. I haven't seen him in person, but think there was only one defensive back committed at one point in this class. And we were all discussing, where is this defensive back class going to go? What's it going to look like? Well, Jonah Williams, Grayson Littleton, Zealous Hicks, and Cade Phillips at the end. That's a dynamite defensive back class.
They're saying Cade Phillips looks really good, Jerry, at the Navy All-American game, by the way. CJ was down there yesterday. He said he was one of the more impressive prospects on either team that he witnessed. So good stuff on that.
Yeah, we'll see if he falls in line and develops as a corner or where he ends up. That's going to be the key thing there. So we'll see what happens with him on this next level at Texas. Obviously, all those guys except Grayson Littleton are early enrollees, but that's going to be the big thing around Cade is, does he stay at corner, or does he make it at corner, or does he not? And he's going to be the one that's going to have to prove that out coming up here starting in March.
And then our next question comes from Bradford. Thank you, Bradford. He says, regarding Burt, did going from Sanborn as a holder to Kern cause any of his issues? Not too sure what all goes into it.
So that's something that's been discussed. I mean, he's dragging the ball left. And when I was talking to a former kicker at the University of Texas and in the NFL, did both, he said that sometimes a new holder like that won't tilt the ball back far enough. It just needs to be tilted back a little bit. He said, but it's more to do with Burt and his left shoulder pulling out early. And just then whenever that happens and you can't get it corrected, you start getting the yips a little bit and you're just in your head. And that's all the yips are. And that's what's happened with Burt. As much as maybe the holding may be an issue to a slight degree, it's really on the kicker. They know where the ball should be placed, and they can work that out with a holder. But Burt, look, 6 of 14 beyond 40 yards this year. 6 of 14, not even 50%. That's just not going to get it done. And so, in my opinion, that beyond and above and beyond anything has to change for Texas. It really does.
And then our
Just
next
this year, and by the way, like Jerry said, I doubt this game's decided by a field goal. Kind of doubt that. Ohio State's going to score points. Texas is going to try to score points. But for next year, fundamentally has to change. They need to be 9 of 12 from beyond 40, not 6 of 14.
Our next question comes from William Niche. Thank you, William. He says, what's your confidence level on Friday's game? Win, lose, or draw, I just want to see Texas compete and not beat themselves.
Look, Ohio State's playing the best football in the playoffs, right? Texas is a 6-point underdog for a reason. I think any of these 4 teams can win either one of these games coming up, though. I think we're at this point, anybody can win the 4 games. I say anybody can win a national championship. I don't know if Notre Dame could score enough to beat Ohio State, though, in reality. But any of 4 could win a title. You just never know what's going to happen in the game. You know, somebody could go down with an injury that impacts the first quarter of the game. But win, lose, or draw for me is I want to see Texas match Ohio State offensive consistency in this game. Because I think Ohio State is – look, they're doing some things offensively. I mean, Chip Kelly's – he's drawing some stuff up that's really difficult to defend. And one of the issues Texas defensively I think they're going to have is if they play zone, if you give these guys free releases all the time and they know they're getting free releases and Chip Kelly calls a game like they're getting free releases, then they're going to score. I mean, they're going to score 30. So can you come back and get in one of those games against a really good defense and make it a 34-31 game? Make it a 35-34 type of game, and where it comes down to the last possession, maybe a last kick, maybe a last throw, maybe that one last trip in the zone. That's what I want to see. I want to see the one thing that would kind of leave a sour taste in my mouth if you lost this game is if they just Ohio State continued to be really good on offense and you just couldn't keep up. That's the one thing that would leave the sour taste in my mouth, because these guys Ohio State's going to make plays. They're going to score points on Texas. They're all top 3 round picks, and they have 2 receivers that are top 15 picks, and one may be a top 5 pick, right? Depending on how everything plays out. But that's the thing that would leave me with a little sour taste at the end of the season. Is it's not if you lose, because sometimes you just have to tip your cap and move on, but it's how you lose if you lose. Now, if you win, Texas isn't going to win playing a B game, Bobby. They're going to have to play their best game of the season. Period. Ohio State's not going to go out there and lay an egg. They're playing too well to go lay. That's not going to happen. They're going to score points. They have too many good players. But if Texas goes out and plays their best game of the season and loses, you just tip your cap and move on.
Yeah, the question is, what's my confidence level? And it's not high. I'll be honest. I think that's fair, and that's because Ohio State is the favorite for the first time. Jerry, as you mentioned, Texas is not the favorite in Vegas for the first time since Alabama more than a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And so is going into a game like this, is my confidence high, low, et cetera? It's lower than it's been in a long time. And that's fair. But that doesn't mean that I think Texas is going in there with just a puncher's chance. I'm actually anxious to see how Texas defends the run. If Texas can stop the Ohio State run game with a light box, or even with 6 and bringing in a 7th every so often, I think this is going to be a ball game. If they can't, then it's going to be it would have to be a shootout, and we'll see what happens. There's no doubt in my mind the winning team will score 27 points or more in this game, though. So Texas has to Jerry's point, has to play its best game offensively, I think, this year. I'm in that I'm in that 31-26, 31-28, 31-27 range right now for this game. Maybe 35-30. I mean, Texas is going to have to score points. Ohio State, we talk about how stingy the Texas defense has been. Ohio State's allowed more than 30 points once all season. Okay, and they played Oregon twice.
Yeah, that was a road game.
Yeah, they played Penn State. All right, so Texas, in my opinion, has to come out and find a way to move the ball early and often, and they have to find a way to stop Ohio State's run game. If you can make Ohio State somewhat one-dimensional, not completely, to Jerry's point, Tony, they're going to make plays. Make Will Howard beat you. That changes the calculus for this game in a way that favors Texas, in my opinion. And they'll try to do the same thing with Quinn Ewers. Look, I would be surprised though if the winner doesn't have at least 27 points on the scoreboard on Sunday.
Oh yeah.
All right. Friday. That's the number for me.
I'm more I've thought about it, I'm really interested to see how Texas secondary, the way they attack these guys. You can't give these guys free releases. Can't do it. You have to reroute these guys on some level, take away some timing. And I think the early, obviously, pass rush early in this game is huge. Whoever gets the early pass rush, I think, can rattle either of these quarterbacks a little bit. And definitely, if they don't rattle them, throw off the timing, which is also part of rattling a passing game. It's not like rattled where the guy doesn't want to be out there. I'm talking about rattling your timing and rhythm in your passing game. But if you're giving these guys a bunch of free releases and you're not redirecting them on any level, then Ohio State's going to win a high probability of the time, unless their pass rush really, truly gets home. And I agree with Tony Hills. We talked about it. Ohio State, I mean, James Pierce, good edge rusher. Oregon got a couple of sacks on Will Howard. Texas has the best pass rush that Ohio State's seen. And how does Ohio State handle that early in this game? Whoever handles the pass rush early in this game, I think has a huge advantage in the passing game. But if Texas gives up a bunch of free releases in this game, I don't know, you're giving up free releases to first-round picks. That doesn't normally end well. There's a reason Nick and Kirby and those guys always play man-to-man against these guys that are this talented.
And on a related note, Aura with the super chat says 10 points versus Michigan, 20 versus Penn State, 17 versus Nebraska. Teams they scored a lot on are not same quality opponent as those teams or Texas defensively. They're on fire, but I want to believe Texas has a chance defensively.
Well, I mean, look, Tennessee's pretty good defense, and they scored on them. I think they believe that they're in a scenario right now that changes who they are and what they've seen, because they have looked absolutely phenomenal the first two games in this college football playoff. So they think they're fundamentally different. We'll see if that's the case on Friday. Are they fundamentally different, or did they just have they turned the corner as an offense at Ohio State, or is it just, two teams that were like down a little bit right now? Tennessee without Dylan Sampson wasn't going to win that game. Oregon was payback for them. That was their Super Bowl of sorts. Let's see if they continue it on against Texas.
And then our next one, fellas, comes from, if I can find it here, Paul Lowe. He says, I still think we have to have Gunnar Helm more involved. He's been a difference maker all season long.
They're going to have to win with Gunnar Helm. They're going to have to win with Matthew Golden. I think Ryan Wingo has to have a big game. I mean, if Texas is going to win this game, they have to get guys involved. Like I said, I think it's going to take 27 points or more to win the game. Period. That means multiple players. And so Trey Wisner needs to get going. Jaden Blue needs to get going in the passing game. All of those guys.
Yeah.
Not just Gunnar Helm, but I think the one thing that just bothered me about Gunnar Helm on Wednesday is that they didn't use him until late, Jerry. Till the game was already tied, essentially. They got to get him involved earlier. against Ohio State. They need to also get Ryan Wingo involved earlier. I really believe that, or Isaiah Bond. They got to get some outside run game going in the screen, wide receiver screen stuff. They just have to take some of the pressure off of Quinn Ewers, so Ohio State just can't pin its ears back.
I think you're muted, Blake.
I think Blake maybe froze in there.
Oh, he froze.
He froze. All right, we'll take it from there. We'll let him back in when he gets.
Hey, Bobby, one thing I forgot to mention in recruiting earlier, I want to mention is that we got another junior day. I know people are all in the game, but the Texas staff also has to get kids to junior day. KJ Edwards, the running back from Carthage, confirmed with me last night. He will be at the January 25th junior day. There's 3 running backs really that I believe are really high for Texas right now. Amari Latimer, your power back, your downhill back from Sandy Creek and Tyrone, Georgia. I think Texas probably leads Miami, Tennessee, Auburn. Not saying they're going to get him because these recruitments there's a lot left on the runway. Then you have Javian Osborne and KJ Edwards. And I do believe Osborne will be at the Texas junior day, but it's not a lot. But KJ Edwards says he will be. Amari Latimer could be. We'll see. Because Auburn has junior days. Georgia, there's a lot of junior days on the 25th people are battling for. So do you just go to a closer one and then make a trip later in the spring if you're an Amari Latimer? But KJ Edwards will be in. So that we have on TexasFootball.com. We're updating that junior day list. Toa Katoa, Nicholas Robertson. We think Turntine will be there, but he hasn't confirmed. Dylan Berryman, who I saw the other day. We'll see if Texas can get Jamion Winfield, but that list is growing. Jalen Lott will be there. It's an impressive group already, and we know it's just about a half or third of the way done.
That's good because I think, look, Texas needs to capitalize on this run overall.
Oh, yeah.
They've been top 5 recruiting class for the last several years now. They end up with the number 1 ranked recruiting class. They need to keep capitalizing on these runs into the playoffs to make sure they're a consistently elite program. That is ultimately what it's all about. And Naaman Roberts, you put in a super chat for Tony Hills. We'll make sure to ask him that one next time. It's talking about why the big line doesn't just fire off the ball old school like Nebraska. Well, Texas has a different offense than old school Nebraska, guys. It's a pro-style offense that requires a little intricacy, I guess is the best way to put it. This one from Splenda. Where does Ohio State money come from? Ohio State has everything from oil and gas up in the Midwest, believe it or not, to other things they have a number of different sources that provide them with money in NIL. They are, like Texas, one of the 2 schools most well-heeled as it relates to that situation. All right. Hey, Jerry, this one from Bradley Carver. Heard y'all were in Monroe, Louisiana the other day. Wish I'd have known. Love the show and have to represent the Horns in North Louisiana. You went and saw Dylan Berryman, the defensive lineman. You also saw Jamion Winfield yesterday. That's a young man out of Richardson. Javion Osborne, running back out of Forney. What do you got planned for later today, bud?
Yeah, I got a couple of stops. Then we'll share those later and tomorrow. But I'm in DFW. I'm going around. I'll probably see Jalen Lott later, and going to make a couple other runs here after this show. But we're seeing some of those top targets for Texas, and I got to get it done today because tomorrow is not going to be a day to be on the road, Dallas. So one of my days on the road, my plans kind of got nixed, so I'm not going to see a couple of guys I'd planned on Thursday. But Dylan Berryman, that was the day for the I was visiting Robertson's. I did see that sign by Robertson's, by the way. But I wanted to say this. If you live in Monroe, Dylan Berryman, one of the top D linemen in the country, obviously at Ouachita Parish. But I was told about, if you're a basketball guy up there, Carl Malone's grandson is a freshman at Ouachita Parish and is averaging 24 games, 6'3" point guard. It is like really, really, really good. So if you're a basketball guy, 2 up in Monroe, you might want to go watch Carl Malone's grandson, who's averaging about 23, 24 game as a freshman in high school this year on varsity on a pretty good team. I think they're 15-5. So I didn't have time to stay and see him. I wish I had, because I would have just watched a little bit of practice. I guess so. It's Carl Malone, The kid's mom is the assistant girls basketball coach there. So Jamion Winfield, stud. I saw two of the top junior defensive linemen in the country. Dylan Berryman, a 0 over the ball tilt player, and then Jamion Winfield, more of your 3-5 guy. But those are going to be two of the top, I think, 3 or 4 or 5 guys in the country at those positions this year.
We're narrowing in about 54 hours or 56 hours before kickoff. Texas versus Ohio State. The Buckeyes remain a 6-point favorite right now. That's probably going to do it for our edition of Coffee and Football. Blake texted us, said his internet connection dropped, but we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Also, we thank Adam Lowy, our sponsor of each and every Wednesday's Coffee and Football. Adam and his firm help people who've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind with more than 20 years of experience of helping injured Texans. They offered a free consultation, no strings attached. Give them a call if you think you might be due compensation. That's loweylawfirm.com. All right, Jerry, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football. Thank you guys very much. We hope to see you out at the tailgate on Friday. If you're going to come into town, make sure you check that out. We've got news on that on our website on texasfootball.com. For Jerry Hamilton, Blake Monroe, as well as our producer, Matt Hutchinson, this has been Coffee and Football. Hook 'em.